Dan, here we are, man. Once again, Dan
Yes, I
and
haven't
Go
talked to you for
Yard.
minutes.
Yeah, we're back again, man. Yeah, we got our stuff going. We got our Dan&Jan GoYard in the background, and it's all good.
It is
It's all
good.
good. Yeah,
And it just I like the smaller I am, the better it is.
I like. No, as I told you, I used to be much taller until Hurricane Floyd, and then I went outside, and that was it. And like my father used to tell me, I said, "Dad, why are you bald?" And he said, "I didn't hear the hair raid sirens." And by the time I got back into the house, I was bald.
Isn't it weird?
This
It'll grow like a weed on your face, but not up there.
I know, I know.
What's up
Well,
with it?
the ortho grow sucked down. That's what happened.
Oh,
Yeah, and then what really bothered me for about 6 months on the way down, it was in my mouth and I couldn't eat anything. I
oh
mean,
my
peanut butter.
goodness. That's
It's
why you
terrible.
shrunk. You couldn't eat.
Exactly. That's it. That's
Who's
exactly
that
right.
that famous old comedian? He got older and he said, the only reason I go to the barber now is to have my nose and ears trimmed.
And I get that. I
Some
get
some
that.
truth to that. Some
Yeah,
truth.
there is truth to that.
Yeah.
And this is our second episode, by the way. This is Dan and Jan Go Yard.
Dose.
Two. Dose. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's opening day in Colorado, isn't it?
It is. It
And
is.
the Rockies are playing the Phillies.
Your ball club at in a half hour they will begin. It's pretty nice weather. It's kind of cool and a little windy,
Mm.
but that won't affect the Rockies. I'm sorry.
Have they won? I think they've won a game, haven't they? Yeah.
They they took 2 out of 3 from Toronto.
Whoa. Whoa.
In
There is hope.
Toronto. Now,
Yeah.
I can only surmise, and God bless them, give the young kids on this team all the credit in the world. They're out there busting their humps, play as good as they can. I'm not sure Toronto took them that serious
Well, it could be.
because they'd gotten swept down in Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, it could
But,
be.
they 2 out of 3 is 2 out of 3. So,
Hey, it's big
that
leagues. You're in the big leagues. That's it.
absolutely,
And
absolutely,
any
it's
team can win in the big leagues. That's why they're there. And let's see, it's what 26 times. How many teams now? 32,
two,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's not a lot of guys. It's not a lot of people, you
Oh
know.
my gosh. It's
So
and
the
I heard this, and with the moment I heard it, I thought, is this possible? All the guys who have played in the big leagues since Major League Baseball began, all of them that have played, you could put inside Ball Arena where the Avs and the Nuggets play. 18,000.
wow,
That's it.
wow, wow, that's
Isn't
amazing.
it
Yeah,
is unbelievable.
that 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 is amazing.
Yeah. But when you think
I
about it, that's way back when you and I were tiny children. Smaller
right.
number of teams, smaller number of roster, you know.
Yeah, 8 teams, 25 guys per team
Yeah.
in each league, so 16 teams total. They never played each other, and the two leagues didn't play
No,
each other until
no.
the World Series, so they didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of makes sense until what? The late 60s. No, 62.
The expansion.
Yeah, expansion after the Giants
Right.
and and
Dodgers.
Dodgers left, and before that,
Yeah.
the A's left, and the St. Louis Browns left, and the Boston Braves left. So
Yeah.
all those teams. So it's yeah, I get it. I get it.
To me, that was a staggering number, though. That
It
what?
is. It is because we
All the guys who ever played Major League Baseball.
yeah.
Um, it's just. Um, I actually started a story because when the Avalanche kicked off this year, that didn't sound right. When the Avalanche hockey team, um,
I know what you were talking about. Hopefully, everybody that's watching us knows what
yeah, he's under an avalanche.
you're
Um, they interviewed, this was so fascinating. They interviewed two hockey players who had played one game each for the Avalanche. One game.
Wow.
That was it.
That's it.
And I got to thinking, how many guys, Moonlight Graham comes to mind, how many guys
Yeah.
ever had one inning, one at bat?
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the end of their career.
Eddie Goodell.
Yeah.
Eddie Goodell, the quote unquote midget that
Right.
Was put in as sort of a gag, but it wasn't a gag because he walked,
Right.
right?
Right.
And he was up one time. And
Yeah.
there are guys that just come
Never
in as
got it at bat.
defensive replay. Yeah, never got to bat.
Yeah.
You know,
So I started a story about that, which I've kind of put on the back burner. But in that 18,000, give or take,
Mhm.
how many of those guys, it was one game, it was one
Yeah,
week. It was just so short. And
that's right.
probably a good number of them that
But they're in the baseball encyclopedia.
absolutely.
They're in the baseball encyclopedia. Everybody that ever played the game is
Yeah.
in the baseball encyclopedia, and it is fascinating to read.
There
Uh,
was a guy I saw interviewed the other day, and I remember him vaguely. And he was, I think he was up in Minnesota, and his whole goal was to go play catch with whoever. And he kind of let it be known, I'll go play catch with anybody. Well, people started kind of lining up. I mean, they'd have to arrange a time, and they'd meet at a park or wherever, and he'd play catch with them. And he said the only time this happened, he was supposed to play catch with somebody who would arrange this time. He showed up at the park. I think this was in Minneapolis. And the guy didn't show, which he said only happened once.
wow.
But this older man came over and said, "Hey, you're the guy who plays catch with everybody." Yeah. And he said, "I'd like to play catch with you." Okay. So they're playing catch. For a few minutes, he said he was really old, and they quit. They stopped, and he said, the guy thanked him, and he said, "Well, I better get going. If I'm late, my wife thinks I might be out with another woman." Where have we heard that line? And there was something else, and he said he walked off, and he kind of looked at me and winked. He said, "I know I just played catch with Moonlight Graham."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is pretty cool.
That is,
That is pretty cool.
and he was one of those guys,
Yeah.
one half inning in the bigs.
Yeah. Played left field or something like that.
He did. He did.
Yeah. And
Never
that
got
was it. And he's in the encyclopedia.
Yeah, and he's in in my
Movie.
estimation, the best baseball movie ever made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
My son got that for me for Father's Day years
it's
ago. Yeah.
if you want to read a great book, I would recommend If You Build It. Remember, that was the line.
Oh, yeah. If you build it, they will come. And they're
Well,
coming, by the way. They're still coming in Iowa.
yes, that's right. Oh, they packed that place. I was going to go, but I got sick a couple of years ago and never made it. But the guy who played his father, Roy Kinsella,
Yeah.
Costner's dad, he wrote this book,
Wow.
If You Build It, because I mean he was in the movie, what, 3 minutes, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
He was so nervous. He tells his story about his dad and his his dad and his sister, and he played catch, and baseball was a big part. But he was afraid he wasn't going to get this job, but he got it. And the aftermath of that, guys coming up to tells these stories of guys coming up to him and saying, "You have no idea what that story meant to me because of my dad."
Yeah.
Their stories of it's a wonderful book.
It's very interesting how baseball is. Baseball, I get it. Most games are multi-generational, so forth,
Yeah,
but baseball has a special multi-generational thing.
it does.
First of all, yeah, it's it doesn't matter what gender you are, with ethnicity or anything like that. But there's always these moments when people will say, I remember that specific time I was sitting with my father, I was sitting with my mother. And my wife will say that the Phillies games were always on in the background,
Hmm.
always on. And interestingly enough, I have a very dear friend, a high school classmate of mine, and it was opening day here in Philly, and he just texted me and he said, "Isn't it great to watch a Phillies game?" And I said, "It is indeed." And that was
Absolutely.
it. That's the whole thing. Um, and you and I live in that world on a consistent basis.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
baseball to me. I love the other sports, but there's baseball and the other sports.
yeah.
It's
It's
sort
so
of,
unique. It's just
yeah,
the memories, the stories, the it's
yeah.
just never ending. It just no
Mhm.
matter how far back you go, or even up
Yeah,
to today, it's just there's a uniqueness about it. And look at the movies that have been sports movies.
yeah,
The top ones are always baseball,
yeah.
and it's because of the characters and the Ryan Sandberg was known to kind of be a pyromaniac. He loved to set guys' shoes on fire in the locker room. I mean, you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
had
He man
characters.
he managed the Phillies for a while. He
Yeah,
started with the Phillies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Another thing I would highly recommend. um, I saw Bob Costas talking about this the other day, and in '65, when Koufax threw his perfect game against the Cubs in LA, was just radio.
Yeah.
And Vin Scully, and I think I told you I got to meet him and talk to him, Vin Scully, out at Coors.
Amazing guy.
Oh, what a,
Started in Brooklyn. He started in Brooklyn.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was so classy. Um, we spoke for a few minutes, and Todd Malding, the bullpen catcher, that's how the connection was made because he
Yeah.
caught for the Dodgers. And Todd told me later, and when I left, I had to get back out on the field. I said, Mr. Scully, it's been an honor and a privilege to meet you. And he leans, who am I? Nobody. He leans over and grabs my hand. He goes, Jan, the pleasure was all mine.
That's beautiful.
Well, Todd told me
Beautiful.
later when he came aboard as the bullpen catcher, he was just a young guy and had kind of scruffy clothes. Well, when they traveled, they had to be in suits, coats, ties,
I remember that. Yep. Yep.
and he didn't have any. And he said one before they were going to take their first road trip, I guess, there's a knock at his apartment door and there's a huge box sitting there. So he brings it in and it's packed 12 suits.
What?
A note that's from Vin Scully said, enjoy.
Wow.
He bought him all those suits.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway,
What a, what a
back to
man.
back to Costas. He said everybody who loves baseball should listen to the ninth inning call of Vin Scully in Koufax's perfect game.
Oh, I gotta hear it.
And I listened to it, and and Costas called it right. He said, it wasn't craft, it was art.
Yeah.
His descriptions, I mean, it's just radio, and you could see exactly what was going on because he was so gifted at that. It
It's
was, yeah. Uh, I'm sure
beautiful.
you can bring it up on YouTube and
Yeah, I will. And baseball is one of those games that, and I'm sure the people listening, some of my students have already commented on our Jan and Dan Go Yard.
favorably. Were they favorable comments?
Yes, very favorable comments. These two students of mine are baseball players. They play for the university for Temple, and
Are they angling for better grades, or do they really think it was good?
no, but one of them did this picture of me. Uh,
Okay.
so
He's
yeah,
not
and
taking
the
art.
other one was watching. The other one was watching him do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Uh, but so we have this baseball camaraderie. Although I will say that none of that impacts grades. They get what they get.
Okay.
That's it. But I forget where I was going to go with this.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
sorry. I cut you off. Well, but
no,
you
no,
said
no, no, no.
they'd made comments about our show.
Yeah, they made comments about our show and they really liked it. They
Yeah.
really liked it.
And the
And for all,
installment too.
yeah, well, for all the people out there, we're talking about the game we love. It's sort of like when, and this may sound a little woo-woo or bizarre or whatever, but when you talk about your kids, you love your kids. You can talk about your kids all day. I could talk
Sure.
about my students all day. It's almost that same feeling. It's
Hmm.
like I grew up with this.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
part of me. It's in my blood.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's like that. They grew up, as I said earlier, like my wife says, with the Phillies in the background, or the Cubs in the background, or the Rockies in the background.
Yeah.
And I know what I was going to tell you. I remember when I was a little kid, laying in bed, and I had my transistor radio, and it was one of those games that started at 10 o'clock at night, and I was supposed to be sleeping, see.
Oh, of course.
Juan Marichel's first game
Oh.
and he was pitching against the Phillies, and he threw a one-hitter, and Clay Dalrymple got the only hit. He was a catcher. And the fact that I remember that, and it's stuck in my brain, is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
How
It's
old were
like,
you, do you think?
how old was I? Oh, geez, I don't know. I guess maybe 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
stuff.
maybe.
Yeah.
Uh, but I remember who got the hit. It was a single to right, I think, and I went, whoa, a one hitter. This guy threw a one hitter.
Well, Marichal was pretty damn
Marshall.
good.
He was
This is my last book,
once upon a time.
Once Upon a Time in Baseball. That
Oh,
picture on the front, I'm about 7 or 8 years old in front of
oh man, that's
the
great.
first house. But the reason I brought it up, besides the fact it's a brilliantly written,
I understand that. I know the author, by the
yes, you do. Sorry.
way.
Jim Bouton said this, and this is so true. I put it at the front of the book. You see, you spend a good piece of your life gripping a baseball. And in the end, it turns out that it was the other way around all the time.
Yeah, that's the truth. That is
It
the truth.
is. It is true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
And well, one of the things that I find fascinating about baseball is you can be 5'6" or 5'4", Freddie Paytek, and weigh 150 pounds and be phenomenal, or
Altuve. Yeah,
yeah, or 6'9" or 10, and thin and be phenomenal, or
absolutely.
heavy. It's like the John Kruk line, and I'm probably paraphrasing, and he was a little heavy and chunky and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and a woman said to him, what do you do? How did we put it? She said, are you an athlete or something like that? And she said, because you don't look like one. And she said, lady, I'm a baseball player. Right? So it's like, yeah, I'm really paraphrasing it, but he's one of the voices of the Phillies.
Right, right.
He's a color guy for the Phillies, and he's hysterical, and with Tom McCarthy, and he comes up with these things that people are thinking of,
Yeah,
and he just says it.
right.
So the game does grip you, and they do all these changes to the game, but it's still the game,
Yeah,
and
you still got to hit, pitch, throw, catch. I
that's
mean,
that's it. and they have this ABS thing now, right?
Right.
No matter balls and strikes. And oh, the other day, the Phillies were playing Washington, and Washington used them both in the first inning, I think it was. And then later in the game, it was like there were obvious mistakes and nothing they could do about it. But
See,
um,
I wonder there because it would seem to me
right,
I'm the manager of a major league team, and these are the rules now that I would before the game say to the players, we're not challenging a strike until at least after the fourth or fifth inning.
exactly.
I mean, when we might need it, seven, eight, nine, you can't be doing in the second inning. And then,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
if you're right, you're cool, you keep going. But if you're wrong, we just lost it. I
and
mean,
and and it's true because they really did need it. And one of the things, this ball just smells like horsehide. It's just great. I love it. So I guess it's still horsehide. I don't know. Maybe it's not, but um, that the thing it's not a big delay when they challenge that.
oh no,
It goes
not
right up on the scoreboard, and you can see it
yeah,
right away. So
absolutely.
the umps are like naked out there when when they miss one. But I think eventually they'll have to expand it to like 8 or 10 times a game per team.
Yeah, I think the only downside to this, to me, is the integrity of the umpires.
Exactly.
They're going to, there are certain major league umpires who are really good behind the dish, and there are others that seem more challenged. I mean, I remember coming up and, if there was a really tall umpire behind the dish, I ain't probably getting the low strike.
That's true.
If
That's
it's the
true.
low strike, or a smaller umpire, I'm probably getting that, but not so much the high strike.
Right.
Plus, you probably remember they had those huge balloon,
Yeah.
and you think, can he see around this to down? So I sympathize with them because I know they're a little on edge over this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
That
get it.
I'm going to look bad in front of 50,000 people 5 times today.
Right.
Come
And
on.
my kids and my wife, right? And anybody who's watching me on TV, it's yeah, it's no pun intended. It's challenging for them. I'm sure of it. I'm
Oh,
sure.
sure, sure. I told you about I drilled the one umpire.
Yeah.
Uh, the most famous umpire when I was going through high school here in Denver and he was a great umpire. His name was Leo Ball, ironical.
Wow.
And but he had a good strike zone. He was a fair guy, the whole 9 yards. And it's my junior year, and I'm pretty much just throwing heat and thinking I'm kind of cool, and we were playing at home, and I buzzed one in there, and I thought it was a strike. And he goes, "Ball." What am I thinking? I come down off. What? That was no ball. That was a strike. And he'd been around a while, so I'm sure he thought this young moron. So he lets me do my little spiel, and he takes off his mask, and he comes out, and he gets this close to me, and he goes, "I'll call the balls and the strikes. Do you understand?" I said, "You bet. Oh yeah, I got it." And of course, the strike zone kind of went. No, it didn't. He was a fair guy, but I don't know why anybody'd want to be an umpire, really.
That is great. That is great. Hey, I remember one time I was umpiring and I was unsure. I was unsure of a pitch and I just called it a straw. The guy went, "What? What?" So I had to make up my mind in those microseconds, what it was.
That's a good straw.
A
It
straw.
wasn't anything. Throw it again. Yeah.
Very good. So um, I'm telling you that I think you know this. I was invited into the Phillies
Yes.
Clubhouse by
Yeah.
Mike Schmidt,
Right.
and that I will never forget that. I will never forget the first time I saw the grass at Connie Mack Stadium, greenest grass I ever saw in my life. It was 1951, and now I I just I've loved over the years going down to spring training,
Sure. Sure.
just being there, smelling it, just
Yeah.
smelling it.
Yeah.
Being a vendor and selling popcorns and peanuts and all this other stuff. And then the nuances of the game. Who are
Absolutely.
they going to trade? Who are they going to keep?
Right.
Why did they let this guy go? He's great now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes on all the time,
Oh,
in
yeah.
every city.
Absolutely.
And,
It's never,
and you
yeah.
guys had a great third baseman and he just left, right? In
Well,
Denver.
they don't get me started on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
they didn't want to pay him, or they didn't want to surround him with
well,
other.
they brilliantly traded him to St. Louis and sent them 50 million bucks for a Hall of
Really?
Fame third baseman. But that aside, this is priceless. In 95 at Coors, our first year at Coors, the Rockies made the playoffs.
Wow.
They had to play the Braves, first round. And that's at the end of the season. I've been throwing BP all year, and being the sharp dude that I am, I I threw BP before the first game, and I went in to because I'm going to go to the game, so I went in to shower and get so I didn't notice all the changes in the clubhouse. Suddenly, all the big clubhouse entrances from the hallway had curtains.
Oh yeah.
And brain trust, okay, whatever. So I get my towel, I go in and shower. They're out still doing stuff. I'm holding my towel to come out to go back to I pull the curtain open, probably 25 reporters, some of whom were women. And, and suddenly I take my towel and wrap it around my waist. And I mean, there was Tim McCarver. There,
Oh,
I don't know. There was some big time ex baseball players, and I've got to maneuver through them to get back down the hall, and I can see them all going, "Who's this guy?" And pardon me, excuse me. I've got my towel. I've got a death grip on it. Oh, gee.
that's great. That
Yeah,
is great.
that was,
You know, as you know, I was a vendor at Connie
right,
Mack Stadium,
right.
and I remember coming out. The vendors came out of the players' exit
Mm,
on, I guess it was on 21st Street, or yeah, on Lehigh. It was the Connie Mack Stadium was the 21st and Lehigh, and everybody thought I was Rick Wise because I had glasses and I was,
really?
yeah, yeah, and they wanted me to sign autographs, and I just, I didn't know what to do. If I don't sign the autographs, Rick Wise is going to look like a terrible guy, and if
Um,
I do sign the autographs, it's
no,
not going to be Rick Wise, and it'll be worthless. So I just kept walking, but um, and I was a kid. I mean, I was maybe 15 or 16, but I was already taller, and I'll never forget that. We left the same exit as the ball players.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
people were waiting. They're waiting there.
yeah,
So, and now, by the way, we have something else
yeah.
that I want to ask you about, since
Okay.
you
The
know these.
answer is no. No, I'm kidding.
And here it is. I have a list, right?
Okay.
So we know that Carlos Beltran is going into the Hall of Fame,
Right.
and Andrew Jones is
Right.
going to the Hall of Fame, elected in his ninth year, Beltran in his fourth year, and Jeff Kent was elected by the Baseball Era Committee. Okay, the old timers. They
Right.
used to call old timers committee.
Right.
Now we have these other guys, and I want to ask you what you think their chances are. Okay. Um, but before I do that, I'm going to give you a list of people who are no longer available. Their eligibilities have run out.
Yeah.
Nick Markakis, Alex Gordon, Rick Porcello, Hunter Pence,
Hmm.
Matt Kemp, Shinso Chu, Edwin Encarnacion, and Ryan Braun. He got caught up in that little,
Mm-hmm.
Barry Bonds and all those other guys,
Right.
Roger Clemens, and Manny Ramirez.
Hmm.
Interesting, is no longer eligible. But these are the guys. I want your expertise on
Oh,
this.
I don't know about that.
Okay. And anybody who's watching can comment in the comments on YouTube. So Chase Utley in his third year got 59.1%. Seen as strong candidate for next year, it says here. Okay. Uh, what do you think? What do you think about Chase?
Well, let me preface this by saying this is subjective voting by the baseball writers.
Absolutely.
So right there, I got a problem. Some guys obviously are just slam dunks.
Right.
I mean, then you got the guys that kind of, and then you got borderline guys, and then you got, no, that ain't gonna
Right.
happen. But it makes me think of, um, I told you I went and interviewed Buck O'Neill,
Yeah. Yeah.
Kansas, for an hour and 45. Buck, that was in 2004. 2006, he is in the top 3 or 4 most memorable Negro League players.
Hmm.
Satchel, Josh Gibson. I mean, but Buck's right up there. So in 2006, they decide they're going to let Negro League players into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And there, I don't remember how many were nominated, but 17 made it.
Mm.
He wasn't one of them.
What?
No, he was 2 votes shy. I think
Oh,
he was shy. He goes to Cooperstown at the induction ceremony because they didn't know these guys, Major League Baseball. So Buck goes there. He's been denied entry, and he introduces those 17 guys. He
wow.
talks about them. That was in what, June or whatever,
August usually. Yeah.
and in October he died.
Oh,
And
maybe it was June. You might be right. It was.
I think he died of a broken heart.
It wouldn't
I mean, he
surprise.
was old and he did have that's what killed him, was a heart attack. But that kind of
Yeah.
encapsulated for me the Hall of Fame for the guys who aren't slam dunks. What if I'm a sports writer and I get to vote and I've had a bad experience with so and so, you wouldn't talk to me or something, I'm going to vote him in? No.
Right. Exactly. That's a good point.
It's subjective. It's in the Olympics, I have trouble with the judges who do the figure skating and the
Right.
gymnastics. Could these people skate across the rink, really? That's why I love, if you run the 100 the fastest, you win.
You're
But
right.
so, and look at the number of guys who've, they didn't get the first time, didn't get the first, second time, and then what happens? They get it the 5th time? Why? Why all of a sudden is this now okay?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I
I don't.
totally get it. Well, Buck finally got in, didn't he?
He got in as an honorary
Oh,
appointment. He didn't get in as a player or manager.
oh boy.
Well, and
That's
it's all. I wrote a whole thing about it. It's a moot point because he was dead.
yeah.
When we had the chance to honor this man, we didn't do it.
Well,
Now,
it's very interesting. It's the same way with Pete Rose. Now, Pete Rose will eventually get in
yeah,
because maybe, okay, because um, the commissioner um, allowed him to get back into baseball.
mhm,
Okay, so he
right,
was let back into baseball, and um, he is the hits leader.
absolutely.
Nobody else was the hits leader.
He was a slam dunk. He was a
Slam
slam
dunk,
dunk. If he hadn't
slam
hit,
dunk.
yeah,
Yeah, but now the crazy thing is, you watch any TV show, and all you see are ads for gambling on sports during the game. Okay,
yes, I know.
so it's like, okay, so you're not going to let him in. You're not going to let Shoeless Joe Jackson in. You're not going to let okay, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Now, the interesting thing is that if Barry Bonds was taking PEDs or whatever, and Roger Clemens was taking PEDs or whatever, and they're facing each other, doesn't that sort of cancel it out? I
It
mean,
does. It does. I mean, that's a wash. But if I'm a pitcher who's not doing it,
right, that's
there's that
true.
old line, "The dog days of summer,"
Yeah.
which hit late August into September. By the way, on one of my teams, I was called the dog days of Sumner. Uh, well, the line was that those guys who did the roids didn't have dog days of summer.
Right, they
They
didn't.
kept their. Now, if I'm a pitcher and it's my 22nd start, I'm tired. I mean, I'm pretty worn down from the
Yeah,
season, and then I face a guy who's roided up and he's feeling cool.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is it was cheating. Simple, cut and dry.
Yeah, it's cheating. It's cheating.
Now I
Uh,
know there were guys who probably did it we don't know about. It was probably a
absolutely.
little more broad than we think,
Yeah,
but nevertheless, it was cheating.
yeah.
And okay, do we have a separate section in the Hall of Fame? I know you wouldn't call it the cheaters, but maybe you put an asterisk there. I don't know. I don't know. With Buck, with Shoeless Joe, he couldn't even read. He hit
Yeah,
375 in that 1919 World Series. He wasn't trying to throw it.
yeah. I could never figure out what the deal was with
Well, he was
him.
part of the Black Sox scandal,
Yeah, the
so
Black Sox,
um,
whatever that meant.
he
Yeah,
kept him. He kept him out. But the poor guy, he couldn't read or write. He could just flat play baseball. I think Ruth said he had the greatest swing he ever saw, and he's
really.
what was it called, Black Betty or something? That huge bat.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I got to go and speak there. So for me, it was great.
You got to go to do what?
Speak at the Hall of Fame.
Oh, you got to speak at the, wow.
Well, I got to present the book I wrote on Byron,
Wow.
Baseball Hall of Fame in
That-
2006, and talk about nervous.
Wow.
Karen and I went, and my family all went, and what was left of Byron's family went. Byron had passed away, and they have these cool, they're little uh, auditorium things, and they're shaped like baseball diamond. And the speaker stands down where home plate would be,
Right.
and then it goes up. And I was in the bullpen, which is appropriate, and it was pretty packed. So I'm thinking, oh, are you kidding me? And I did a PowerPoint, and his family was all there, and oh man, I was nervous. And they had a little like iPad thing on the podium because I was doing pictures. So, I could hit this and the next picture would come up behind me, big screen, but I could see the picture back at the back. So I
Wow.
hit it, it's supposed to go one up. Well, I looked at it before we started and I thought, what was this put in here when this was built, this place? It looked worn, and anyway, it didn't look in
Wow.
great shape. So I start my speech and I hit a picture. Well, I'm like two-thirds or half through and I hit it, and then it goes two pictures.
Oh,
It's skipping. Or I hit it, nothing, doesn't go anywhere. Well, this, as you know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the drawer, and this broke what little concentration I had. And the girl who set it up was sitting there, and she stopped and came up and scrubbed it down and, see if we could get it to work right. And
oh
it
man.
kind of worked right. And anyway, I got to the end and I had this incredible picture of Byron as an older man. And he's holding a glove, a lot like that one behind on the logo. And he's got his hand in it and he's just looking out over the horizon. It was so touching.
Hmm.
And I'd written this closing about what they went through, from the cotton fields to the baseball fields to, all this stuff. And I knew I was going to maybe not be able to get through it.
Wow.
And I start into it, and a very close buddy of mine was in the back filming it. And sure enough, I get all choked up trying to read this. And I'm just looking down at the paper. And finally and I look up and everyone is crying.
Wow.
His family is crying. The girl who set it all up, she's sobbing. And
Wow.
on the video later, Jack, my buddy, says, "Come on, my brother, I know you can do this." But I did finish it.
Yeah.
And but the honor of getting to do that at Cooper, a stiff like me, presenting a book, it was it's one of the great highlights
Beautiful.
of my life, let alone in baseball.
It's beautiful. Uh, uh,
It was. Cooperstown is just so cool.
I, I, I've been there. I took my boys
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and
It reeks
I
of
read
baseball.
everything.
Yeah,
What?
it reeks. That town
Yeah,
reeks of baseball. It's just
yeah.
every shop, every store, every cafe. It's just baseball.
Everything, everything. And uh, my kids, I remember they they ribbed me later because I read everything. I read every plaque, everything. And I think my youngest son said, "Yo, Dad, it's cold in here," or whatever it was. And it was like,
I'm
well,
hungry.
we were in summer, but he got into it. My boys got into it. They loved it. And I got to the pitching machines and said, okay, let's try the 90 mile an hour one, right? And then but it doesn't come in straight.
Right.
It moves. And I went,
Sure.
and this is what a baseball player has to face in the major leagues.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is crazy. And the people in Cooperstown, I remember driving back to Philly. We're
Right.
still in Cooperstown, and my car, something happened to my car, and it sort of stopped on the road. And it was
Oh.
like, yeah, in Cooperstown. And I'm thinking, and this is before cell phones.
Oh
I'm thinking,
sure.
what the heck? How am I going to get some? And all of a sudden, it was like moonlight, shows up at the car. This
Oh wow.
this this guy and this woman, and they're yelling, "You okay?" You know. And we went, well, the car broke. And he said, "We saw you sitting on our porch up there, and we saw you break down. So come on up. We'll call the guy to help you."
And
I
they
went,
did.
and they did. And that was,
Of
I was like, to this day, I remember that. I mean, it was
course.
beautiful. It's Cooperstown, New York. It's just,
Oh, It's a hamlet. It's just the coolest little town I've ever been in.
Yeah,
And,
it's
and to get to do that book
it's
thing,
great.
it's was. I mean, I was so honored, and I was honored that his book, his story, would be in the Baseball Hall of Fame when he couldn't have been,
Yeah,
when he was growing up and playing
yeah,
ball and
yeah.
all those guys that were so cool. Cool Papa Bell. Did you ever hear of him?
Of course.
Some of them think, some people think he was the fastest guy ever play baseball.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so I don't know. And now they have a section in there for the Negro Leagues.
there
But
was one where what was the line? I think Billy Crystal said it. I forget, but it was about how fast the guy was.
well, Ali took the line, "I'm so fast, I'm in bed before the light. I turn out the
Yeah,
light."
yeah, yeah. Well, it was about him. It was about the ball player.
Cool Papa Bell was the first one to say that.
Yes, yes. That's it.
I don't know
That's
if I told you this story by Byron told me, because he's playing shortstop for the Monarchs, and I can't remember now who Cool Papa played for, but they're playing him. Well, Byron was a rookie, and they told him before the game, when Cool Papa comes up, you better move in. And Byron apparently had a gun for an arm. I mean, just his fingers, it must have taken 10 seconds to get off those. And what? He says, I'm telling you. So he doesn't move in. And, Cool Papa lays down a bunt or something. Well, a couple innings, now Byron's kind of learned his lesson. And back then in the Negro, they just had two umpires, one behind the plate, one out behind second.
right.
And so Cool Papa comes up and he hits one um, kind of up the middle. And so Byron goes out to get the cutoff from the center fielder, and it turns around and Cool Papa's on third.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said. So he looks over at Cool Papa, and Cool Papa kind of goes, winks at him. A few innings go by. Cool Papa comes up, hits one into right center, kind of, same kind of scenario. But this time, the second baseman's got to go. So Byron watches Cool Papa. Well, he rounds first, then he cuts behind the mound and goes to third. Well, the umpire out there isn't looking.
Right.
And so, Cool Papa or Byron walks over to him, and Cool Papa just goes. But he was apparently just lightning quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great stuff. That is
Oh,
great
yeah.
stuff.
We were talking about how unique baseball is, and Mark Schlereth is. He
Yeah.
does NFL stuff. He has Super Bowl champ with the Broncos, and he's a radio guy here and whatever. He's a big dude. And I worked with his son for 2 years as a pitcher. This kid was a
Right.
pitcher. Got drafted #1 by the Diamondbacks.
Wow.
And but he heard about me, so he wants me to come out to Highlands Ranch High School, where Daniel, his kid, was playing, and take a look at him and whatever. So I go out. I had not met him yet. I just talked to him on the phone. I certainly knew who he was. And he and his wife Lisa are kind of just laying on the slope of the hill there watching the game down here. So we introduce ourselves, and he turns to me pretty quickly into the game, and he says, "You know something, Jan? I always thought baseball players were wimps." Now he's a little bigger than me, and you want to take this out to the parking lot? I didn't say anything. I just said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, until Daniel was getting loose for a game, and I'm standing down there by the bullpen. And Daniel says, Dad, why don't you step in like a hitter? He goes, he had 27 surgeries, so he's not. He says, so okay, I step in, and he said, holy cow, I couldn't even see the ball. Boom, it's in the glove. And I said,
Did
yeah, he's probably throwing 87, 88. Try on 100 sometime. No, no. I don't, he said, I have a whole new respect for baseball players.
yeah, and that's the deal.
Yeah.
It's like it's on you before you know it,
Oh, absolutely.
and the fact that these guys can, in less than a blink of an eye, hit that thing while it's moving in different directions. And we yell at, can't, why are you swinging at that? At the TV. Can't you see that's outside? Well, no, because when it came at me, it was straight on. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden it went like that. It's like,
absolutely.
no,
Yeah.
but we're all, sitting there on our couches screaming at the TV because this guy couldn't hit a slider, and he
Right.
was a sucker for it. But
Yeah.
hey, didn't look like a slider when it was coming up to the
Oh,
plate.
of course not. No, I mean, that's part of the charm or tactic of being a pitcher. You'll hear the term they have to repeat their mechanics.
Yeah,
And okay, what does that mean? Well, it means when I throw my four seamer, it's got to look the same as when I throw my hook. My
yeah,
mechanics have to, well, that's for young kids, that's a big challenge. They'll drag their arm or they'll do things. We played my sophomore year in college, we won this district in our first round Division One district game was against Gonzaga. And they had a guy who could bring it. I don't know what his fastball was. It was well over 90.
wow.
However, every time he threw his breaking pitch, he'd go stick his tongue out.
Oh,
We just
oh,
we beat his brains in
wow.
because we
Uh,
knew we knew oh it's going to be
he
a
was showing
fastball.
his pitches. He
Oh,
was
it's going to be a
showing his.
hook. Yeah. So it's that happened to Maddox. It's hard to believe, but he was struggling with his breaking pitch. It was like guys were knew it was coming. And
Mhm.
Mazzoni was the pitching coach, who I think was unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
But Bobby Cox, who was the manager, went down to the bullpen. He was doing an off day work and he's watching him. And Maddox kept his index finger out of his glove, like I did. And
Right, me too.
well, he would, when he was going to throw his curve or whatever, he'd lift it up.
Uh,
And Cox spotted it. So they put an extra piece of leather so he couldn't lift it up out of it.
wow.
Oh, there guys tip pitches, uh,
Yeah.
and they're just not aware of it. They do different things, but you know, coaches and other hitters will see them do it and go, "Hey, look for this. Look for
Right.
he'll do this. He'll stick his tongue out. He'll lift this. He'll whatever." And
You're showing your pitches. Yeah.
yeah, and if they know it's coming,
Tipping them. Yeah.
it's all over but the shouting. So
That's true. Yeah, it's little things. It's like you can't do that in other games.
hmm,
There's no way of tipping your slap shot or
no,
tipping a 30-yard pass or a 3-pointer.
no,
It
it's
doesn't exist. It
and
doesn't
you and I
exist.
have talked about this because when I've done talks on some of my baseball books, I've just told them if Elway had completed 30% of his passes, he would never have played in the NFL.
Correct.
If Patrick Waugh could only have stopped 30% of the shots, he would never have played. If I hit 300 in the bigs, I'm going to be stinking rich.
Right. You're right.
You're paid to fail.
You're
It's
paid to fail.
it's
You're paid to
And that's,
fail.
I remember Deion Sanders saying that wore him down was the failure of baseball mentally. I can't succeed like he could in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's the same with Michael Jordan.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, he's what is he? 6'7", 6'6",
Something like that. Yeah,
6'8". See, he's got this massive strike zone. I loved tall hitters because they got a lot of ground to cover there.
that's true. That's
But
true. They do.
who was that pitching? Who was the hitting coach for the White Sox then? He he had a he coached them with a long swing. That's really not what you want to be doing at 6'6".
No, no, no. And I was just talking about that the other day about a player that was just so tall. We were watching it on TV. It was a Phillies game. I said, this guy's so big. I
Yeah,
mean, they could just chip away at him. I mean, he's got so much. And,
yeah,
and it's like Freddie Patak
right.
from the Royals. He was a little guy, so it's harder to get him out. All you had to do was just stand there and wait for somebody to get a
Well, his
little outside.
strike zone's this big, and
Yeah,
it's hard to fool them within. I mean, last year I'm sure I heard that Altuve hit fastballs better than any other hitter in Major League Baseball.
wouldn't surprise me. He's
And
what, 5'6"?
5'6", yeah. And I hated little guys, small guys, because their strike zone was so small, and they could be more picky.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge, good grief.
That was it. It was Aaron Judge. And it was a Phillies Yankees game, but a spring training game. That's
Okay,
what
yeah.
and I'm looking at him and going, and he had what, 331 or something last
Well,
season? So,
give him credit. That's for 6'7" guy. You could put Altuve inside his strike zone.
that's true. That's
It's
true.
that's a lot of,
That's amazing.
yeah, and to hit that well, but that tells me Judge has learned how to hit. One thing today that back when we grew up and major leaguers at the time, they would make two-strike adjustments. Not today.
No.
Guys don't do that. They're swinging it hard 0-2 as they are when
Yeah.
it's 2-1. I mean, and Juan Soto, if you watch him, he spreads his feet when he gets two strikes on him. He's just looking to put the ball into play. That's what you should be doing.
I agree with you.
It's
And another point when we were younger about ball players, and I often wonder this because it's hot in Philly in the summer. It's hot in St. Louis in the summer.
sure.
It's hot in a lot. And they're wearing these wool uniforms. The uniforms were wool. They weren't the stuff that they wear now. Okay.
Right,
And
right.
how the heck did they play in that? It's like, how did Babe Ruth hit all those home runs and pitch and hit with wearing wool in the summer? You would think that they would at least make it cotton.
You would think.
Nobody
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
when I was in high school, my junior summer, we had Legion ball, and the sponsor we had wool uniforms in the summer.
right.
And I threw a 9-inning ball game, and lost 16 pounds.
Wow.
Most of it was water weight, but I'm just,
So,
and we didn't have Gatorade.
right.
So is there a hose around here? So yeah, it's,
Brutal.
they didn't wear all the armor. I mean, I understand today because pitchers are a little
Yeah.
wild, shall we say?
Yeah.
And you got to protect yourself. But somebody asked Bob Gibson, what do you think when Bonds came up and he had all that armor on, his right arm? And Gibson said, I think I threw hard enough to break it.
I have to tell you something. It was a joy to watch him. and Tim
Oh,
McCarver. A joy, even though he was the opposing team. I would say to people, would you want to stand in against this guy?
no.
He just looked fearsome.
He
He had
was.
that, yeah, he looked it, and but when he was interviewed, he was just a
Oh,
nice guy.
yeah. But on
But
the field, Tim McCarver, who caught him, tells this story that one of the games, and Gibson was struggling a little with his control. So McCarver calls timeout to go out. You didn't want to go out to the mound when he was pitching. And McCarver said he was like halfway, and Gibson yells, "Go back behind home plate. The only thing you know about pitching is you can't hit it." And McCarver went back. But I don't know. I don't think anybody'd want to be going out to the mound like these meetings they have now. And
yeah, then they got those things that they wear in their hats.
for the calls, pitches,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, to call
Really?
pitches. It's like, okay, so you're not doing this. You don't have to paint your fingernails so the pitcher can't see it. But it's like, there wasn't that fun to figure out that the guy on second could see what the catcher was putting down and somehow signal it to somebody else. It was
Well,
like, I always wondered that. Like,
yeah,
what, a runner at second, while a guy's pitching and the catcher's putting down the numbers, can't they just do this and they see it in the dugout or something of the opposing team? Go like that or that or that or that or whatever, and tell the other team, hey, this guy's going to throw a curveball, this guy's going to throw a slider or whatever. But that
yeah,
was the fun part. Now it's like, okay,
yeah. It's all become automated.
yeah,
I coached pitchers for 2 years at Littleton High School, and I had a kid. This shows you how this trickles down. So he's out there pitching, and he's in trouble. So I walk out to the mound, and he puts his glove over his mouth. Now we're in high school. He puts his glove over his mouth, and I walked out and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I don't want him to." I said, "Do you think you're on television?" And he says, "Takes well, I I kind of wish I was." And I said, "Not the way you're pitching." But here he was, he's seen it on TV that
they do they do
and they
that.
still do it.
They still
Coaches go out and they cover up their mouth. And unless you're a really clever lip reader, I'm thinking you're not going to.
well, well, Jan, episode 2
Oh,
has been great. It's
as
been great.
always, as
Yeah, and
always.
don't forget, folks, that you're watching this. Subscribe to
Please,
Jan and
please.
Dan and Jan Go Yard,
We're
please.
old. We need affirmation. We need to know that we're not bad
Yes,
people.
we are not, and we love baseball. And if you're
Absolutely.
watching this, chances are you love baseball. So
Yeah.
join us every week. We're on, and Jan,
Yeah.
thanks.
And I would like to add
Great.
one more thing.
Yeah.
If you like us, let us know, subscribe. If you don't like us, just leave us alone.
Yeah, there you go. And with that, we say, see you later.
Adios.
And this has been a great bottom of the first. And well, I guess next week we'll start the second inning. All right.
Absolutely.
Tip of the hat.
Adios.
Tip of the
Bye.
hat, folks. We'll see you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Are we done recording?
No.
Okay.